Hey, hello everybody. Kenny Brown here, and I've got something kind of cool to show you. Every time we have something in the shop that's interesting, I try to steal some parts from mechanics when they're not looking, so I can show you some cool stuff and then put it back before they know it's gone. Well, tonight I want to talk a little bit about our JRZ shocks. Now, JRZ shocks are our premium shock package that we use for pretty much all of our track day cars. And they come in, they're custom built for me in the Netherlands to my specifications. And they're shipped here, on a plane. And when they get here, we assemble them. I select the spring specifically for each individual customer for their application. And when you get them, they're assembled. There's an initial adjustment on there. You get a shock setup sheet, and it kind of tells you how the shocks are, how I set them up at. And then there's also kind of like a mini tuning guide at the bottom. So you can just, make some basic adjustments, although I recommend people don't make big adjustments. It just doesn't work that way. Everything in moderation, especially in adjusting shocks. But let me get right to it and show you what these are, because these are a mainline shock. And JRZs actually come in single adjustable, double adjustable, and also the RS Pros, which are double adjustable with remote canister. Now, for 90% of our clients, the single adjustable is more than adequate. It seems like the more things people have to adjust, the more opportunity they have to adjust themselves into the fence, which I've seen more than once. And for 90% of our people, the single adjustables are just fine. And especially if you've never worked with adjustable shocks before, it's better if you focus on just one adjustment, not two, because if you do the math, between a bump adjustment, rebound adjustment, four corners of the car, there's thousands of different combinations, and the least thing you want to do is find yourself in the weeds. So anyway, this is the rear, and this is our single adjustable. And people ask about the little spring down here, the helper spring. Well, the reason for that is I use some fairly high spring rates, and if you've been paying attention to some of my Cars and Coffee, you know what I'm talking about. But when you have a high spring rate and you let the car down, if this were set up at ride height, then when the car got let down, this would kind of flop around. So what we do is we use these little helper springs just to kind of keep everything in place. So when the weight is off and the shocks hang down, everything stays in place and they go back on. Now these, like I said, are single adjustable, and you can see there's you can see that, that's not good there. So there's a plus and a minus. Minus is soft and plus is hard or firm. And we adjust everything off of full soft. I start at full soft and work our way up. You never want to start at hard and work your way down. And that's just kind of like the worst thing to do, because you want the shocks to be just firm enough for compliance, but not so firm that they don't move enough and they kind of jump across the bumps. Now, single adjustable only controls a rebound. Now, what is rebound? Okay, rebound is when your spring compresses. Okay, if you squash a spring, what's going to happen as soon as you stop squashing it is going to bong. It's going to spring back up. And you've probably seen old cars going down the road where they're kind of like bouncing along when they have no shocks left. So what the rebound is, it's just pretty much that. It controls rebound. It controls how quickly or slowly that spring unwinds from being squished. Okay, and what you want to do is we want to control that unwinding, like in the front, going around a corner. You want to control how fast that comes up, because you want to have the front of the nose planted. On the back, you want to control how fast it comes up, so you still have weight on the rear tire, so you have grip. So that's what single adjustable is about. A bump adjustment is just that, adjusts compression. And 90% of the shock tuning we do on Mustangs is with rebound. So, that the compression doesn't really play into this. Although, however, even though this is single adjustable, with every click, there is a small increase in bump adjust, but the major increase is in rebound. So this is the rear, and you can see this is a pretty sweet package. These are super high premium, top quality shocks. And then moving on to the front of the car, usually I start at the front and work backwards. Today I seem to work from the backwards forwards. But this is a front strut. And again, we've got our helper spring down here to take up the slack. And I don't know if you can see this, but below there you got a little silver thing down there. That's a torsion release bearing. We always put torsion release bearings on all of our coilover shocks. Two things. One, it makes it easier to adjust ride height because you've got this basically two thin washers and roller bearings all the way around. So it makes adjusting really easy. But also, as a spring compresses, it goes up and down, it actually kind of twitch a little bit. And by having this little torsion release bearing, it just does that. It releases the torsion that it goes into it, so the spring operates more smoothly. But back a long time ago, when we didn't, before, we're just making our coilovers up, this is like 20 some years ago, when we really didn't have a selection we have today, we would like turn like Conies or Bilsteins into coilovers with a kit. And torsion release bearings really weren't that prominent back then. And what we would see happen is actually we'd see the springs actually wearing on the threads on the coilover because there wasn't any give to them, and they were kind of like doing some funky things. So again, we've got the adjustment on the top, negative and plus. And like I say, when it comes to you, I'll make a preliminary adjustment based on your spring rate and application, and then the little tuning guide. But then there's also big letters. Call me before I make any major adjustments on your shocks. Call me, and I'll kind of talk you through it. So this is the front strut, and of course all of our struts come with can pre-assemble just like this. Camber plates on and adjustment. So, and the thing about JRZs is actually, I don't know if you can see that, actually got a little bit of camber built right into the strut, which means you don't have to run as much camber on the top, which is a good thing. So that's a little bit of our JRZs, and I wanted to show them to you because I love them. I mean, they're a great shock. I got exposed to JRZs in 2011, my late son Paul won the Pirelli World Challenge GTS Championship. He didn't win, he just kind of dominated. And one of the keys, or there's two keys that I carried forward. One is we talked about before, my Pro 4R race brakes. I mean, that was part of his package. We've since developed them into a much, much better package, which we offer for S195, 197 as far as for pure racing. Nothing better. You may have seen one of the clips on that, but also the JRZs. And I was really impressed because Paul had incredible car control, but one of the things he was really, really good at is making the curbs work for himself. Now curbs, curbing, you see like the pros driving on curbs all the time, and they kind of fly across them. Well, you've got to have a good shock package to use the curbs. If you don't have a good shock package, the curbs can actually upset the car, or give you a little sway or something, and that just kind of kills time. But if you've got a good shock package, you can actually use the curbs. And that was what's really impressed me. But Paul had obviously the motorsport shocks, and they're a little pricey for our track day guys. Like 10 grand for a set of shocks plus springs. So we talked to JRZ, and they've actually since then come out with an RS line, which is sort of like for the track day guy and club racer. And it's just a wonderful shock package. I mean, we use them on, just about everything. We've got them for S197s and the S550s. And like I say, if you want kind of like the best track day shock without spending 10 grand for a motorsport shock, JRZs are the ones to have. I mean, if they work, I wouldn't use them on the cars I build. So if you want to talk more about the shocks and spring rates, I didn't mention spring rates. My spring rates are so much higher than everybody else, but then I know how to make springs work and shocks work, and springs and shocks have to work together. But this is a track setup, so we're running about a 650 front and 400 rear, which is typical for a live axle car. The S197s from the factory come with 134 front, maybe 150 somewhere in there, depending on the car. And off-the-shelf aftermarket sport springs typically only get you 200, maybe 220, and that's about it. And my touring package starts at 350. Performance Street's like 400, and that Performance Street 400 also really good for novice track day people, even all the way up to intermediate. But for the guys that are kind of more advanced and intermediate, but still running street tires, I might run like a 500, 550. But for our advanced track day guys, we'll run a 650, 400. But this is actually not a track car, but it's a GT500. And the front of a GT500 weighs a lot. So I actually use a much higher rate spring. If this was a street car, we'd probably be looking at 500, 550 if it was a Coyote car. But with the GT500 and the extra nose weight, then I chose to use a 650 on this car. And it should just drive like a dream. We've used that package before on the street for GT500s, and it works. In fact, we had a number of years ago, we had somebody bring a Shelby, what's the Super Snake. It was the S197 Super Snake, and he spent like a lot of money on this thing, and he just hated the way it drove. So he brought it to us. You know, we did our full suspension, you know, the Gen 4 AGS 4.0 suspension, and said JRZ single adjustable with the 650 400s. And it wasn't half an hour, 45 minutes later, he called and he said, you know, this car's never driven this good. I should have brought it to you guys first. Well, good for us. But anyway, that's just how good of a package this are, whether it's street or track. If you want a super high quality, premium shock package, JRZ is it. I mean, if they weren't, I wouldn't use them in the cars that I build. So if you have any questions, certainly, you know the drill. You can get a hold of Carrie or send an email and kind of sign up for one of my 15-minute consults that I try to do a number of them a week just to kind of connect with people and give them like good information. And if you want to talk more about shocks and springs, I'd be happy to do that. Just like I say, I'll call in, set one of my complimentary 15-minute consults, and you know, we'll kind of chat about it. So in the meantime, I got to get these back on the bench before they figure out they're gone, or I'm going to be in big trouble. So that's it. That's on shocks for tonight.